In this video, I'll be going through all of the figures that you will need to populate a Mos Eisley Cantina playset. Hi there Star Wars collectors, and welcome to another Bosk's Bounty video, and welcome to another episode of Complete the Scene. Or is it an episode of Missing Figures? If you're new to the channel and you have no idea what I'm talking about, then let me explain. So on my channel I have a video series called Missing Figures, where I go through all of the figures that have not been released in the vintage collection that we would need to populate newly released TVC playsets such as the Carbon Freezing Chamber and the Tanti 4. I also have a series called Complete the Scene, where I talk about figures Hasbro still needs to release to complete various scenes from the Star Wars movies and TV shows. For example, I made a video about the Prisoner Skiff before we got Velkin Tazeri, and also the Rogue One Scarif attack team. So in this video, I'm going to be going through the best versions of figures Hasbro have released that you'll need to populate a Mos Eisley Cantina. And I'll leave it with you to decide if this is a Missing Figures from a rumoured HASLAB or a Complete the Scene video. Helpful eBay links of all of the figures I talk about in this video are in the description below, and purchasing something via these links is a great way to support the channel. So thank you so much in advance if you do happen to use those links. With all that being said, hit the like button if you find this video useful, and subscribe if you are new, and let's get into this. Okay, so first up, I'm going to be talking about the figures which are most sought after, and most of these are from the Legacy collection, and I do apologise in advance for how I pronounce some of these weird alien names. Okay, so first up we've got Trinto, Duaba and Dice Ibegon from the Legacy collection. This is a fantastic 2-pack. Both of the figures are highly detailed, really good sculpts. If only they made figures like this these days, it'd be awesome. If you're wondering where you can see them in the movie, Trinto can be seen sat next to Hammerhead in the corner of the alcove, and the figure, as I say, does not disappoint at all. Really good sculpt. Dice can be seen with a one-on-one headshot with Lack Sivrak, although this was changed in the special edition. We'll talk about that a little bit more later on in the video. Moving on to Hrchel. Now this alien species is often confused with Trandoshans due to their lizard-like appearance. However, Calfas actually belongs to a species called Saurins. Calfas can be seen standing at the bar next to Dannik Jerriko. He's in a few other scenes as well. Another great figure from the Legacy collection, this one. Some say it does have its inaccuracies to the source material, namely the eyes, but it's still a brilliant figure and a brilliant sculpt, and a must for any Cantina display. Leesub Sirlin is a pink coloured female who I believe was played by Pam Rose. You can see her behind Luke and Ben when they are negotiating with Han. As with many of these characters, they are a blink and you'll miss them, but that didn't stop Hasbro from making her, and again, you're going to need her for your Cantina display. Next up we have Pons Limbic, another figure from the Legacy collection. Pons, nicknamed Brainiac for obvious reasons, is a brilliant sculpt. Really good figure, but like many of these older figures, only has swivel hips, but do not let that put you off. It is a really good figure, this one. Pons can be seen in the very first shot of the Cantina, but is kind of obscured by Dazon's head. Moving on from the Legacy collection, and we have two of the more famous Cantina patrons, Walrus Man, also known as Ponda Barber, and Dr. Evezan. Both of these have been released in TVC and should be easy to pick up, although Ponda Barber will be quite expensive on card. Luckily, he was repacked into the 3.75 inch black series, so it might be a better option if you are planning on opening the figure. I will link to both in the description, but no Cantina display will be complete without the two characters that did not choose wisely when they decided to pick on Luke Skywalker. Sticking with the vintage collection, we have Bomb Vimdin, which in my opinion is one of the most underrated figures going. It is a really good sculpt and quite easy to pick up still on the secondary market. This one isn't really too expensive as far as TVC 1.0 goes. You can see Bomb Vimdin in the very first shot to the right of Dazon as he pops up on screen. Quickly going back to the 3.75 inch black series, you are going to need to pick up a Mosep Binid. I believe you do get a good shot of him walking by outside of the Cantina, but also if you look closely and have a pause button, then you will be able to find him inside the Cantina too. This was the last time Hasbro made an all-new Cantina alien, and if I'm not mistaken, even has rocker ankles. The issue with this figure is that it can't sit down due to the plastic tunic, still an accurate representation of the character and unlikely to be seen again. Next up, we're going to be talking about 3 figures from the original Trilogy collection that were grouped together in a mini beat called Cantina Encounter. All 3 of these are going up in value, so you may want to be quick or maybe try to get them loose. They are Momaw, Dannik Jerriko and Feltipern Trevagg. Momaw and Feltipern are both once again great sculpts, especially for the time. Dannik has the unfortunate issue that even though never seen in the movie, he has these things that I cannot describe growing out of his face. They are removable, but leave some pretty awful looking holes in his face. But still, being such a prominent face, no pun intended, at the bar, he is a must for any cantina display. Momaw the Cyclops type creature can be seen next to Momaw, and Feltipern can be seen getting cozy with Onith, who we shall come on to next. Onith was released in the 30th anniversary collection and actually comes packed in with a piece of the bar or a table with a stool. Great value back in the day. Now you shouldn't have too much trouble picking this guy up on eBay. Doesn't really go for too much. Same goes for the other 30th anniversary figure on this list, which is Elis Helrot. This is the guy that looks like something from a Scream movie. Again, the figure is packed in with a piece of table and a stool. I'm not actually sure if you get a good shot of Elis in the movie, maybe just the back of his head, but you'll have to let me know in the comments section below. Next up is the most famous of all Rhodians. It is of course Greedo, and the best version we currently have is the 2006 VOTC. However, I do believe he was repacked into the 2010 Saga Legends line along with Bosk, so I will link to both versions so you can find the cheapest option, but of course it goes without saying you are going to need Greedo for your cantina display. Next up we have Wioslea from the Legacy Collection. This is the seriously ugly alien that bought Luke Skywalker's Landspeeder. However, this alien can be seen in the background of the cantina. Another blink and you'll miss it moment, but she is there. Legacy Collection once again, another great figure, tough one to find at a good price. Now we move on to 3 figures from the 2001 Power of the Jedi line. First up, we have Elis Maddak. This guy is a Duros, which is the same species as our good friend Cad Bane. There are actually 2 of them in the scene, but from my knowledge, Banis Keeg has never been made. Not the best figure by any stretch of the imagination, but it is currently the best we have. Boshek is the human male in the black pilot suit that we see having a conversation with Ben Kenobi, flanked by Chewie, before he ends up speaking with Han. Not the best sculpt, very dated for a pilot figure, but alas, it is the only one that we have. Also, with a little customization and a Bosk figure, you can use the helmet to create the Spaceman figure, which again has never been released. The final figure for the Power of the Jedi line is Ketwal. This character replaced Lax Sivrak in the special edition for the face-off with dice. You can also turn the head around on this figure and remove a portion of his legs to make a completely different character. Pretty neat. Back to the Vintage Collection, and in recent years they have released both Zutton and Figirin D'an on card backs. You shouldn't have any trouble getting either of these figures, they are both widely available. You can also get the whole modal nodes in a 7-pack. It was a Hasbro Pulse exclusive. I wonder why they made that. Moving on to the 2006 Saga collection, and we have 5 figures to go through. First up is Keedd-kak. This is the guy that looks like a praying mantis and can be seen standing behind Chewbacca when Ben defends Luke against Dr. Evezan. Not the greatest sculpt, but it is nearly 20 years old. But if you want a full cantina, then you're going to need to pick him up. Next we have Labria, which is the devil-looking guy with the horns. His species is called a Deveronian, who we have since seen in The Mandalorian. Again, the sculpt isn't great, the cape is pretty awful, but it's one of the most recognisable cantina aliens that you will need. Then we have Hemdazon. This guy is featured in the very first shot when that iconic music kicks in. Pretty sure you never see him below the neck, so take what you will from the figure. Spoiler alert, it's not great. Certainly from an articulation point of view, his knees don't bend, things like that. Moving on to Nabran Leeds and Cabe. Cabe needs no introduction. He's the little furry dude dressed in red who whimpers for his beverage at the bar. In another shot next to him is Nabran Leeds, a very cool looking alien with a type of gas mask on his face. It's a great little 2-pack. However, Cabe can be found in another set with Momaw, and Nabron can be also found in another set, although lacking the silver paint scheme. You can find him packed in with Labria and also with another Snivian similar to Zutton called Takil. And finally from the Saga collection we have Momaw Nadon, more commonly known as Hammerhead. The sculpt for this figure is actually really good, as is the paint applications. The issue that it's always had is that it can't sit down, which of course it really needs to. One of the most iconic shots from inside the cantina is Hammerhead sitting in the alcove at the table, and one we desperately need on that TVC card. Just the one figure that was released in the Saga series of 2002 is the bounty hunter Dijas Pur. I think that's how you pronounce it. He can be seen in a group shot with Muftak just after the first shot with Hamdezon. Not really much to say about this figure except that it is old, it feels old, it looks old, but it's the only one we have. Then we have 3 figures from all the way back in the Power of the Force line. If you own a bar, then you're going to need a bartender. Wooher from the Power of the Force is in desperate need of an update, and hopefully any future playset will have Wooher included as standard. In the meantime, you can pick up this version pretty cheap. You can also get a slightly better version of Wooher in an original Trilogy Cantina set, which also includes the Praying Mantis and a rubbish Dr. Evezan. Next we have Lak Sivrak, which is the Wolfman type character. Another figure that is really showing its age. Obviously it came out in 1998 in the Power of the Force. It hasn't been updated since. And Lak Sivrak is the Wolfman character that got cut from the original version and replaced with Ketwal. And finally we have the Cabe and Muftak 2-pack that I mentioned earlier. A pretty easy one to pick up, but again a must have for your Cantina aliens. That's it for figures that are not main characters. Of course, Han, Luke, Ben, 3PO, R2 and Chewie are all present at some point in the Cantina. Plus we have Jawas and Sandtroopers present too. Links to the current best versions of all of these will be in the description below. So there you have it. These are the current best versions of all of the figures that you would need to fill a Cantina diorama, or maybe a HASLAB playset. Let's see what May the 4th brings. I hope you've enjoyed the video and that you find it useful. Thank you to my Patreon supporters and channel members. As always, your support means a great deal to me. Thank you all for watching, and we shall see you on the next one.